Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me today for today's webinar, Attracting Your Ideal Clients, Creating a Killer Online Presence. I'm MC Carter, founder of Practice Paradox, and we are the global leader, Google tells us so, in the digital marketing for accountants space. We're the pioneer in the space and remain the leader in that. So if you're here to learn how to better market in the modern sense, the digital online sense, your accounting, bookkeeping, business advisory or other professional services firm, you're at the right webinar. So we love our webinars to be interactive, so ask as many questions as you like today and I'll get to them in the Q&A session we have at the end. Now, what we'll cover today, an overview of what we'll explore together. We'll look at the social media checkboxes, if you like, that you need to go through and tick off, because I know from a lot of the surveys that we've done over the years, social media remains a bit of a black box mystery for many, where people are using it inconsistently or not at all, and they're wondering why they're bothering, many firms. We'll look at how to rank well for targeted search keywords. If those last 3 words didn't mean much to you, they will by the end of today. Using Google My Business to rank well for your target phrases. And we'll look at 2 benefits of blogging. And I covered this in my last Friday beer storming. If you haven't yet liked our Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/practice paradox, do that. And when we go live, most Fridays, with Friday beer storming, where I do a presentation, you get notified in Facebook. But today I'll recap what I did on Friday around 6 essentials for digital marketing, because we had some great feedback on the structure and clarity that gave people. And we'll look at 3 ingredients that are also essential, but a different 3, that if you really are serious about marketing, you need to have all 3 of these things in place, or you probably won't get consistent results. You won't be happy with your return on investment or energy or time. So let's have a look at social media. Now, to create a really strong online presence that creates excellent first impressions, you have to have a goal for each platform. Now, just do me a favor, if you're watching this live with me and not a recording later, just type into the chat area which social platforms you are currently using, just to give me an idea. So with social media, they're each different in terms of the platforms. So I can see Chris has answered Facebook, LinkedIn, Michael's LinkedIn, Sue, Facebook, LinkedIn, Dawn, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm spotting a pattern here. Call me Sherlock. Jennifer's answered those 2 plus Twitter. So clearly LinkedIn is very strong in the accounting space. Facebook, a couple of years ago, my advice around Facebook was, well, you know, it's more business to consumer, B2C, not so much B2B, business to business marketing, but that's changed a lot since their introduction of groups. And I know many of you are members of different groups, which are, you know, membership based. You have to like apply often to get into these closed or private groups. And in fact, we have one for our Paradox members for Implementer. And so that's shifted in Facebook. It's a much more informal space. LinkedIn, everyone's got their jacket and tie or blouse. To be a bit PC, I forget about that, in place. You know, it's business attire platform, whereas Facebook's a lot more casual, but it's still business. And I kind of like it for that reason. People have less of a veneer, professional veneer going. Okay, so others answered Malcolm, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, so Twitter is highly sort of conversational and banter-based as well. So here's the thing, understand and have a written objective, a goal that you want to achieve for each platform. So for example, with Twitter, your prospects might be in Twitter or they might not be, but I'll tell you who will be in Twitter, and that's centers of influence. So they might be other consultants and advisors that are complementary rather than competitive to you. The media, big time, are in there, whether we're talking print or electronic media. You know, you watch the news these days, gosh, even the weather people, and they'll have their little Twitter handle across in that lower third titling on screen. So the media's there, industry bodies and so on. So you can really extend your influence, and obviously software vendors, a lot of industry providers are in Twitter. So whilst Twitter might not be good for reaching your target audience, it's really strong for extending your reach and extending your referral network. Having said that, I know plenty of firms, depending who you're targeting, that do get lots of leads, dozens in fact, each month from Twitter, from actual prospective clients. But that's the first thing. Have a goal for each platform, and then do your posts, what you publish, according to that goal. Have that clearly in mind. So make sure you've got a wiki or some sort of knowledge base intranet where you have your policies, procedures. This is how we run our business, guidelines documented, and include your guidelines for the use of social media. And clearly social media, first word in that being social, it's a conversation. So you want to generate a conversation, and there's, just like in real life, there's an art to it. So you want to make sure it's a dialogue, a two-way dialogue, not a one-way monologue where you're just fig jamming yourself all the time, just telling everyone, far out, I'm good, just ask me. There are people like that in social media, and they just make my eyes roll and I scroll straight past them. So rather than that, get involved, respond to other people's conversations. Don't just be a publisher, but interact. So reply and respond to other people's posts and then to yours. It's really important that if someone does ask a question or comment, that you then reply, hit the ball back over the net. And I'll share with you today some tools that make it easy for you to monitor interactions in social media. Now, often you'll link to your website. Now, here's a metric. It's not explicitly in the slides today, so you might want to write this one down. We ask people, what is the objective of your social media use? We also ask a question in our marketing gap analysis that we do with firms that are thinking of working with us. What's the objective of your website? And with social media, there's a lot of vanity metrics about reach, and there's these scores that you can get about how influential you are. And obviously you can look at things like likes and shares and comments and so on. And that's all nice and that's good and it's indicative. But really, the number one metric that you should be looking at least monthly, is what percentage of your website traffic, so people who've come to your website, came from social. One number. And if that's a low percentage, like, it should be up around 10% and beyond. If it's like 1%, 2%, you need to look at your social media engagement. Now, if you're a Paradox member, have a look in the analytics summary, which is the second last report, bottom left, and you can see your sources of traffic, whether people have come directly or through search or through social, etc. So when you link to your site, you want to be adding value. So link to your own articles, but also do what's called content curation. So curation in the same use of that word of a curator of, say, a gallery or a museum. They haven't created the artworks and the pieces in there, but they're sharing them by putting them in the collection. So if you've not heard that phrase before, content curation just means sharing third party, that's what 3P stands for there, third party articles. And you might think, what's the point of that? Well, there's two main points. One, it's a bit like when you're reading a really good book, or you've read a great paper or an article somewhere and you share it with a client. It creates an affinity between you and them. They get to understand what you're into, what lights your fire, and you're adding value because you're putting good information in front of others. So it kind of strengthens the bond in that relationship. And people get you're kind of basking in the reflected glory or the reflected authority of great content. So that's one reason to do it. But there are tools such as Sniply. So Sniply website, S-N-I-P, Snip, I won't make any jokes about that word, people my age, .ly, snip.ly, is a really cool tool that when you do posts to, where you're sharing an article on some other website that's not your website, when people click the link, let's say in your LinkedIn update that says, hey, good article on such and such, here's the link, they click it, they go to this other website. In the bottom left-hand corner of the screen can be a little notification type ad for you, for your brand. Can have your logo or photo, a headline, a button, call to action, they call that button, that when they click on it, can go to, ideally not your homepage. That's a bit lame to have call to actions that just go to a homepage. You should send them to a specific article or a specific landing page, something about a specific topic. Anyway, so you can actually drive traffic to your website using Sniply, even though you're sharing third-party content. Quick aside there. Also set up recurring queues. There's a phrase in marketing these days of evergreen. So evergreen content is, if you write an article, let's say you're doing a blog post and you think to yourself, Will this be just as relevant in 6 months' time? If the answer is yes, well, it's evergreen topic. So a lot of articles can be written to be evergreen, whereas, articles on last night's budget, that sort of thing, obviously they'll date over time. So with your evergreen topics, you can set up queues in apps. With the one in this category that we recommend is called Sendable. That's S-E-N-D, send, and then I-B-L-E. So it's like sensible, but with a D in the middle instead of an S. But there's also others you would have heard of, like Hootsuite, Sprout Social. We don't rate those for various reasons compared to Sendable. So, oh, by the way, you may have also have heard of a tool called Buffer, and also another tool called Meet Edgar. And don't worry about using either Buffer or Meet Edgar, because you'll be paying money for very specific apps that do very specific things. And each one of those things that these apps, Buffer, their website's Buffer app, and Meet Edgar, they're just one of many features that Sendable can do anyway. So when you've got these recurring queues of evergreen content, you can re-promote your blog posts. And that's what we do for our members. If you're using our blog article service, when we put a blog, an article up on your website, we'll promote it initially, of course. Hey, new blog, headline, link, image, etc. And that's good and that's necessary. But the last time I looked at the data, less than 20% of your social media followers are likely to even see a post in social of you saying, hey, new blog post. So that's a bit of a waste, isn't it? So we re-promote articles for our members on about a 7-week intervals. So if you can imagine, if you did a blog post this week, and then a couple of weeks later, another one, and then another one, and you're re-promoting them, you end up with a really strong social media presence of good quality content that's educational. So do set up those recurring queues, and it shows that you're active. The algorithms within social media that decide what people will see, what you will see, they're changing all the time. And if you're not very active with your social media, and then you finally do have something important to say, a big announcement, a big event, if you haven't been posting frequently, the chances of many people seeing those time-sensitive, announcement type posts is quite small. So stay active with social. Our social media update service achieves, that's one of the outcomes that we do, where we do posts for you. So the social media manager app I mentioned is Sendable. Let us know, we can send you a link to sign up for a free trial of that. Feel free to say yes, please, to Sendable in chat, and we can send you a link to that later. So I think it's like a 2-week free trial of Sendable, very time efficient. Now you can also schedule posts in advance. So the difference between a queue and scheduling is a schedule is a date and a time. So, Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m., we'll schedule a post to promote that. Whereas a queue, and this is a really cool feature, by the way, in Sendable that I love, is you can have a queue for certain types of posts. So let's say you like to do posts that are images with quotes on them that you think are profound and useful. And then you've got another queue that might be promotion of your own blog posts. You might have another queue that might be sharing tips on technology. And if you're a progressive accountant, you probably do that, probably should. There's so much happening in that space. Then in each smart queue, one for the quotes, one for the articles, one for the tech tips, you can have a different pattern. You can say, okay, we're going to do, Motivational Monday, and we're going to send out those quotes on Monday morning. And then anything you add to that queue, it's like it's got a reservoir, a queue lined up, and it will just publish at those intervals that you say. With your blog post, you can say, okay, we'll do those at lunchtime each day or whatever. Very, very cool. That's different to scheduling posts. Scheduling posts will work when you're promoting a webinar or an event, that sort of thing. And yeah, look, just get ideas from those you follow. Every time you see a post that's getting a lot of engagement, you think, that's pretty smart. I like the way they did that little mini rant or posed that question or asked for help, whatever it is. Take a screenshot of it and add that to an ideas file into something like Evernote. If you're a Microsoft fan, you might use OneNote, same idea. And just capture those down as ideas. Go, right, that was cool. Asking people, what's your favorite app in this category, or can anyone make a recommendation, whatever it might be. So get ideas from those that you follow, and do analyze the data in Implementer, because not only can you look at big picture data, like I mentioned before, but you can see across LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, there are individual reports in our Implementer platform for each of those. And there's also a summary across. You can see which posts are getting the most engagement. And that's a feedback loop. That's important to notice that for starters, then interpret it, and then change your behavior based on that feedback. And that will allow you to just post more engaging content that people actually care about. Now, one of the reports in Implementer that people love the most is the keyword ranking report. And today I'll talk a lot about keyword ranking. It's something that if you don't talk about it much when you're talking about your firm's marketing, you're going to get a lot out of today's content that we're yet to even get through, because it is so crucial to understand the principles and the strategy and some of the techniques and methodologies around keyword tracking, because that's the difference between your website getting 100, 200 visits a month, which when a lot of accounting firms, when they first come to us, that's all their website's getting. Really you need to be getting over 1,000, 2,000 and more visits to your website each month if you realistically expect your website to generate leads, which it should. So in the keyword ranking here, when we onboard a new member, we show you how to use a tool called Google Auto Suggest or Google Autocomplete, goes by two names. And you can see, based on the first word or two that you enter, what are the common phrases that people search, the related searches. And you want to enter into Implementer up to 30 phrases that relate to who are you targeting, what issues, problems are you solving in the marketplace, which services do you want to rank really well for. And then what Implementer will do, each week will update your ranking and color code it for you. And you can also track two competitors as well. That's really useful because if you're using our SEO implementation, so SEO being search engine optimization, which is geek speak for how to rank well in Google and the other search engines, if someone is outranking you for a specific phrase that you think, oh, gee, I wish we were #1 in Google for that, we can reverse engineer that. It's actually, the data is publicly available on websites and in other reports, and we can outcompete and outmaneuver them. All's fair in love and war and digital marketing. So a reminder that, it's a reminder if you've been listening to my Friday beer storming or recent webinars, you don't just want to be on page 1 of Google, which is the first 10 free listings. In addition to that, these days, there's the Google My Business or the Google Places, the map at the top, and the ads. Page 1 of Google's a start, but you want to be top 3 in the free search results, or they call them the organic search results, because the top 3 get 80% of the clicks. 80% of the clicks. So that is the difference between getting thousands of visitors and hundreds of visitors to your website. So this report over time goes from being red to green to blue as your rankings improve. And if you're competitive in nature, as you may well be, it's kind of fun. You know whether you're winning. Okay, so some of the practical tips around social media. Make sure you add the branding and the images. When someone inquires with us, and I'm sure you probably do the same, you check them out, you look them up in LinkedIn, you see what other social media they've got. And if I had $1 for every time, for example, I've gone to LinkedIn and looked at someone's personal profile and it's incomplete. They don't have a photo, or they've got a rubbish photo that looks like a passport deer in the headlights photo with their shadow on the wall, or worse, no photo. Or on their company page, if they've even bothered to set up a company page in LinkedIn, which I do recommend, they've got like a blurry logo. And basically their first impressions, that if you're doing that in your firm, the first impressions you make of someone who's heard about you through a friend and they're looking you up is, we're amateur, we're not up to date, we're not modern, we're not savvy, we don't really know what we're doing in this modern world of digital. And you might think, geez, MC, that's a lot to read into a fuzzy logo. There's no logic to it. Okay, now each image has ideal proportions for the images. So, each platform, sorry. So Facebook likes certain proportions, Twitter likes certain proportions, and LinkedIn. So if you post an image and you expect that one image to look good on all the social platforms, unless it's been very cleverly designed so that you know which bit's going to be cut off at the top and the bottom on the different platforms to leave the main words or the main image intact, it's probably going to again look a bit amateur. So I'll show you a tool that you can do to make sure that the size and the proportions of the images will look good on the different social platforms. Now, if you're a partner in a firm, director in a firm, you think, MC, this is all a bit beneath me. I barely touch a keyboard these days. That's fine. You still need to be aware of these things so that you can direct and delegate to resources. Let's say you've got a marketing coordinator, or you're using the Paradox team, or both. You could say, hey, I noticed that last post in LinkedIn, the blog image got cut off at the top. Can you make sure that those proportions are set properly? Basically, just understand the terminology and the concept. Now, use a professional designer for your images. You can use a tool like Canva. That's like the word canvas minus the S. Australian-based startup that I think, last I read, the stock market valuation is in excess of $1 billion. So canva.com, get a professional designer, and if you don't have one, ask us, we'll recommend, to set up your templates. You can actually, if you have a paid version of Canva, have a branding style guide set up with the fonts you use, the colors, the color palette that you use, and some different layouts and templates, so that when someone's doing a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post, etc., they have a high chance of getting a good looking result, even though they are not a designer themselves, because a trained designer has thought through the layout and the template for that. Post a variety of content. Just, there's one guy, and his name is, no, I won't name him, but there's this Melbourne accountant, and what he does, I can tell he's using some software to do it. He's just always sprouting out just one line of quotes, right, from authors, speakers, gurus, and they're good quotes, right? And then he'll have dash and who it's from. But that's all he seems to post all the time. Now, to come back to the concept of social media being social, always visualize being at a social gathering, a barbecue, a dinner with friends. And imagine sitting next to this guy, and all he ever did is turn to you occasionally and go, "A rolling stone gathers no moss. Look before you leap. A problem defined is a problem half solved." You would change seats, wouldn't you? Weirdo, right? So post a variety of content, do motivational quotes and so on, but make sure that you do a variety of content in there. And you don't always have to do fully branded, fully graphical one, particularly on platforms like Twitter. Though Twitter's become more visual over the years, it's really interesting. Some of the biggest features in Facebook, they've just straight out copied off other platforms. So like check-in, they took that from Foursquare. Live stream, they took that from Periscope, and Twitter acquired them. And they influence each other. So social media has become a lot more visual, but plain text posts are fine. Images are good because they catch people's attention. Now, video, live streaming video is huge at the moment, and it's surprisingly easy to do. All you need is a smartphone. I do recommend a tripod to hold your camera, but you can do it even just through your laptop. So live stream through Facebook, and it's becoming common in LinkedIn as well now. And one of the good things about live stream at the moment is because the platforms want live stream and video to be a big part of their platforms, because this is becoming the new entertainment for people. It's the new television, and Facebook are strongly targeting this. But essentially, you'll get much greater reach because their algorithms will say, "Oh, it's live video. Let's let all their followers know about that." Whereas a standard post, the algorithm might go, "Let's let 5% of his followers know about that." We talked about linking to your blog posts and linking to good quality third-party articles. Now, one of the videos in the Modern Marketing Academy, which, by the way, if you're a member of Paradox and have access to the Implementer platform, all of the content of our Modern Marketing Academy that some of the biggest rock star firms in the accounting profession globally have done our academy and learnt this stuff. There's a video on content curation and how to use RSS feeds, which is basically how to subscribe to blogs, but to not have that content come into your email inbox, but rather have it come into an app such as Feedly. And then there's a really cool way that you can link Feedly through to Sendible. So when you're having your morning coffee or tea or juice, you can say, "Oh, that's a good article," tap, and you've just added it to your queue. So it can be extremely time efficient once you have a few of the tech pieces in place. Just looking at some of the comments there. Yeah, Jennifer's mentioned that you use Canva. That's cool. And Jennifer's also asked, Now, Jennifer, ask questions in the Q&A, not in chat, because then I'll definitely see those questions later. But you've asked in chat, would you have a recommendation for the best time to post on social media? Presently, we're scheduling posts every day at 5. Is this a good time? Brad's replied, Brad on our marketing machine mechanic, who created this slide deck for me. Brad's replied, we like to go for midday and evenings. It all depends on what the data says, exactly. So you can check on Facebook Insights and Twitter Analytics. So the answer to that is there's no carte blanche recommendation for when's a good time, because it depends who are you targeting and which platform. So if you combine each of those, so if you're targeting white collar professionals versus tradies, etc., they're going to have totally different times when they're more active on social media or not. So as Brad said, Jennifer, just look at the data in each of the platforms and see when you do tend to get the greatest engagement, and just test. And that's the beauty of these tools like Sendable, is you can test at the different days of the week. You know, you might think, for example, everyone, that let's not post on weekends. Weekends can be big. Someone's out for their morning coffee, or they're watching the kids' sport, whatever it might be. And you know, often people don't grab a newspaper anymore. They'll flick through their feeds and different things. So test times a day, days of the week, and there's no blanket recommendation on that. Anytime you see a business coach telling the profession that everyone should do this or everyone should look like that, you know, alarm bells should be ringing, that they're either simplistic or naive or both. Now, how to rank well in Google. Firstly, write for very specific people. So niche markets. Now, we've been pioneers in being really strong in advising firms to niche, or if you're in North America, niche. So don't misconstrue what niching means. Niching does not have to mean an industry focus. It can mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that at all. But it does mean be focused. So we show you in some of our training videos in the Academy, in Implementer, that you can combine industry as one option. So imagine 4 circles: industry, occupation, because someone could be in the same occupation but in a different industry, vice versa. Demographics, so basic facts about them in terms of age, you know, family stage, revenue, you know, facts and figures, demographics. And fourthly, psychographics, so their values, their aspirations, their pain points. And you can combine any of those circles in different ways to come up with a focused strategy. But once you've done that, you need to write articles that speak to your ideal clients. Now, if you're a member of Paradox, in Implementer, under the section called Define Your Strategy Level 1, one of the tasks with a link to an Excel template that you download is about defining your target buyer personas, sometimes known as avatars. And these are a very in-depth description of your ideal clients. Now, if you are new to that concept that I just said of target buyer personas, and you think, yeah, we've got ours, and they sound anything like this: businesses who have a revenue in excess of X million, that have been in business for this many years, have this many staff, who are good payers, good listeners, take advice. They won't help you at all. Those criteria are useful, and they're client selection criteria, but they are not client attraction criteria. A buyer persona is about working out how to attract your ideal clients. Your client selection criteria can help you screen a prospective client as you're going through the initial conversations with them to see if they are indeed a match for you. But imagine, you know, you've got a page on your website. Is your business in excess of $2 million? Do you have 3 or more employees? Do you pay your bills on time? Are a nice person, good listener, good payer? Well, have you come to the right accounting firm? You line up with the other 10,000 accounting firms in Australia alone, targeting those. So the key with target buyer personas is not to be aware of the concept, right? You can be aware of principles of fitness and nutrition, etc., but still not practice them. The devil is in the detail here, in defining the detail explicitly. And in that Excel file that you download, there are multiple rows across the different areas of demographics, psychographics, etc., to really, really nail that. And we'll be doing exercises and critiques at the upcoming masterclass, which is on, it's the last Thursday and Friday in July this month on the Sunshine Coast. I've got the dates a bit later on, but we'll give you time and a framework to work on this stuff, because let's face it, when you're in the office, you can get stuck in that operational whirlwind of interruptions, communication, email inbox, phone messages, meetings, and it's hard to take out that time to do that slow thinking. And breakthroughs always come when you take time to ponder and have that slow thinking. You won't come up with any breakthroughs with rushed, hurried, reactive thinking. Next, once you're really clear, like really clear on who you're talking to, each article that you write, you should be thinking, well, which of our target buyer personas are we writing to here? Because when you write to one person. You should never use any pronouns that are plural, to you all. You write to you, to the one person, because when you write to one person, they get an internal dialogue in their head, which is essentially you talking to them, but you're inside their head. Pretty powerful if you do it well. So the goal there is to ethically influence them by educating them, teach them things that will help them in their life. Now, I've added there, teach principles. What you want to do is teach them the principles that underpin your value-added services. Because if you are, like most firms out there, some of your clients, some of your small business clients might not know what they don't know about basics of business, asset structuring, succession planning, tax planning, cash flow management, might not know the difference between profit and cash flow. Things that, with your experience and background, you take for granted. To me, starting a business is a bit like parenting, two of the most exciting, most rewarding things in the world. Very exciting to get started in both of those things, but no qualifications required. Therefore, people get into running a business, being a parent, and they go, God, didn't know it was going to be this hard. So, people in small business, they need help, and it's your role to help them. And that's why educational style of marketing works so well. So then, if you're putting this content out there, you want to track those keywords and create content that when you're doing an article, and this is what we do in our blog article service, is we go, okay, this is an article on, let's say, I'm trying to think of one that went through recently. Some of the changes that are happening around bankruptcy, let's say, right? And how that affects ownership of assets like your family home. And we go, okay, what phrase should this article rank well for? So that's when you go to Google Suggest, Google Autocomplete, see what people are searching on and go, right, we are going to nail this phrase with the SEO for this article so that when it's published, it's going to be top 3 in Google, probably within 2 weeks, generally. If you are targeting a long tail phrase. So write that down if you've not heard that phrase before from me or anywhere. Long tail phrase. It's a statistical term, which basically means if you were to graph all of the phrases that people in your target markets are searching on, the head of the graph, where there's the most volume of searches, but also the most competition, the head is where you don't want to be. And that's brief searches like accountant, Sydney, financial planner, Melbourne, bookkeeper, Adelaide. So those, 1 and 2 word phrases, there's so many other people trying to rank well for them. It's difficult to rank well for them, and they attract fairly price sensitive generic searches anyway. So you want a phrase that's 3, 4, 5 words long that's about a specific thing for a specific audience. So there's far fewer people searching on these phrases in the tail, but there's still hundreds of them, hundreds of these searches every month. So, one of the fundamental tenets, if you've ever played team sports, you don't take your opposition head on against their strengths. You try to outflank them, so to speak, and you play to your strengths. So you don't want to compete head on. Now, before I go on to the next part, I've just seen a question. Nicole's asked, how many posts are too many on social media? We have a once a day post with Paradox, but would like to start posting more personal posts like meet the team, our events and services. Should we change to once every 2 days with Paradox? Very good question, Nicole. I would say no, because a lot of the posts we're doing will be sharing of blog posts and letting people know. Those personal posts, just do them at a different time of day. So go to 2 posts a day and track the analytics and do your personal posts at a time of day that might be a commute time for your target market, let's say. So start of the day, end of the day. And with the other ones, we can do them more around lunchtime. I tell you, it's really interesting looking at data. When I was at Business Fitness, I was a co-founder at Business Fitness in 2001, and we started doing email broadcasts and webinars and so on. And you could see open rates, what percentage of people are opening emails at different times of the day. And you'll see articles every once in a while. Here are the best days and times of the day to send out emails in your marketing. Again, it all depends on your list and who. And one of them said, never email people on a Friday. People aren't interested in things on a Friday. Well, we found, I don't know what's going on in your firms out there, peoples, but we found that after lunch on Friday, open rates are really big. I don't know, has everyone done their mandatory time clocked up for the week and they go, no, that's it, feet are up on the desk and they're just cruising their email inbox and looking for distraction? Who knows? But the data is the data. So Nicole, the answer to that is, yeah, go to 2 a day, do them at different times of the day, and then monitor the metrics. And over time, you will see different engagement rates. So reach out and keep us in the loop on that, Nicole. Now with SEO, I'll fly through this because we run through this in depth for members in our Ask an Expert webinars that we do each month. What you're in now is called a public webinar. Anyone, whether you're a member or not, can come to this webinar and it's free. And obviously we're educating to teach you things that you might not know about so that you might want to implement them with our support and our services. The Ask an Expert webinars are ones that are just for members, and we're really rolling up the sleeves and diving into a lot more detail because we can, because we've got the time. So here, with the search engine optimization for blog posts, that bullet point list of 7 items, very quickly. Title. The title is what Google sees and what is displayed in blue text in the Google search results. It's the hyperlinked one that people click on. Now that should be SEO'd, meaning it should have the target phrase or a very similar phrase in the title to help your ranking with it. Now, there's an art and a science to this. You shouldn't slavishly bang in your target phrase necessarily as the title. You can sometimes have something that is still really good to read. It's still a good headline, but it still works for the SEO for having the phrase in there. So title is not what people see on the blog post, by the way. That's called metadata, so data about data. And the title is what Google sees. Very important. Often, if you're using a content management system, and I'll speak about those a little bit in a moment, content management systems basically is just your website platform. We recommend WordPress. It's great for SEO. It's great for blogging, but there are a lot of very bad content management systems out there, particularly in the accountants for, websites for accountants space. There's some shockers out there, and I've been quite outspoken about them for years now. Don't make many friends in that sector saying it, but I don't care. And often, right, these platforms, when they're bad, you'll do a headline for the article that is the headline that you see, that readers see on the page, right, on the blog post at the top. And a bad content management system does not allow you to change the title as Google sees it. It'll just grab all the words in that headline and replace the spaces with hyphens. And then you end up with this massive web address URL for that blog post. And that's not good. So you can actually craft your title and the URL separately if you're using something like WordPress. And we do that for you in our content services, such as our blog article service. Next thing, description, is the paragraph. Recently, by the way, Google doubled the length you could have for a description in the search results, and then they did a backflip on it about 2 months later. But the description is the words that are shown in black text in the Google search results that, beneath the title. Now, this is really important, not just for SEO, to rank well for the phrase that you're targeting with the particular web page or particular blog post, but because showing up in search results is important. As I said before, you want to be top 3 of the free search results on page 1 of Google, but you still got to get them to click. So it's not uncommon for, let's say, a really good blog post that had a great title and great description is the 3rd in Google, and then above it was some ones that were ranking better for other reasons, but they had really lame titles like home. You see that a lot. So, you should check the title of your website's homepage. If it's just your brand name and then dash home, fail. You need to have a title that when people see it, go, oh, that sounds interesting. makes them want to click it. So that's title and description. H1 is the main headline that people see at the top of the blog post or the web page, and it's got to be formatted properly so that Google sees these little H1 heading 1 tags. So Google goes, oh, that's what that's about. And it can be different, has a different purpose to the title because the reader is already on the page. And if they're already on the page, you don't have to sell them to get them to click it. You have to intrigue them to read on. So don't have time to go into that in any more detail right now. H2 and H3 are basically your subheadings. The words used in subheadings really are noticed and taken into account by Google's ranking algorithm. Bold, so the words that you add strong emphasis to, they count as well. Alt image tags are the descriptions, the text descriptions of the images that you put on a blog post. Why does Google care about those? For people who are visually impaired, their web browsers will actually read out a description of the images. So that's taken into account. And keyword density, so you can actually over optimize a page and put a target phrase in too often. And that's what you'll get if you use a bad SEO operative from someone, in a low-cost center. You know, the people who send you the emails, dear sir / madam, I've looked at your website and, we can help you rank better, when they don't even know what phrases you're targeting. And people like that, who don't really know what they're doing, they'll jam in that phrase all over the place, but now Google will actually penalize if your keyword density is too high because it's unnatural. And Google wants to serve up good search results to people. Now, if you're using WordPress, there's an excellent plugin called Yoast. So it's like toast, but with a Y at the start. And on the left there, the screenshot that Brad's put in there is an analysis of a web page or a blog. And it highlights with a great little traffic light system, problems in red, improvements, moderate issues in orange, other things to think about in gray, and things that are all good in green. So then you can do something about it. The screenshot on the right there shows where you can craft the SEO title that I just spoke about before. The slug is the end of the URL. So again, that can be optimized for your target phrase. Doesn't just have to be the heading, the H1 heading. The meta description we described before. So you can really craft that. And then Yoast will change the headlights in terms of how well SEO'd it is. Some relatively new features that Brad educated me on that Yoast now has is the ability to also craft posts using Yoast for the social platforms, which is very, very cool. So, before we talked about different image proportions are used on different social platforms. So there's the second tab, the one beneath the traffic light tab there, looks like a little social network icon. So you can actually craft the Facebook title, the Facebook description. So this is essentially how Facebook will display the title, the description, when you paste a link into a post. It'll go, oh, that's the way you want it to appear. So you've got a high degree of finesse if you know how and why to apply it in that. Now, Google My Business is crucial. Now, before we go further, I'd like to do a poll with everyone. Now, this is a poll where you can answer more than one reply. So I'd like you to move your mouse or touch your trackpad and click each of these that apply for you. So how would you rate your firm's online presence? You've got fully branded social media. So there's no bad images, fuzzy logos, eggheads in Twitter. Secondly, social media use consistently. Third, you're tracking your phrases and ranking well in Google. You're tracking your phrases, but you're not sure how you rank in Google. So you've identified phrases. Google My Business, our next topic that I'm about to go into, is set up and optimized, meaning it's been set up with your target phrase in mind. You've got your Google My Business listing created. You're blogging consistently. And by consistently, at least once a month. Like really, at least once a month. As Woody Allen is quoted as saying, 80% of success in life is just showing up. If you're in a sporting team, just show up to training, show up to the games. That's a good start. You've registered for a course, university, college, wherever, online, just show up. Now, if you're not blogging at least once a month, Sorry, you just haven't even shown up to digital marketing. You're running an undercover operation. So if you are blogging on an ad hoc basis, answer that. And lastly, answer little or no online presence. So I'm going to leave that going until a good percentage of you have voted. 80%, at the moment, only 55% of you have voted. So I'll come back to that and share the results once we get 80% of you. So Google My Business is a free account that every business who has a website gets. So it enables you, sure, to rank well for your firm name, but that doesn't really matter nearly as much as your primary phrase that you want to rank well for that will attract what's known as profitable traffic. So you don't just want anyone coming to your website, you want people that are going to be good quality leads. I'll never forget a dinner that I was attending to. It was after Account Financial type conference. We were working with a number of the firms in that group at the time. And we're at dinner, and this guy from the Gold Coast sitting next to me, I'd never met him before. I knew of him. And the first course hadn't even come out, but we'd had a couple of drinks, and he must have had a bit of Dutch courage. And he says to me, he goes, so you're a digital marketing, are you? Websites, that sort of thing? I went, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's all a waste of time. All our websites attracts is tire kickers. And I thought, well, I don't know what your mother taught you, but that's not the most polite opening I've ever heard to a conversation. But then I just retorted, well, shit attracts flies, and just moved on and spoke to the guy on my other shoulder. I think he spat his beer. But the point is, if your website's attracting low quality leads, there's a reason for that. And it's everything from your keyword strategy, upstream from that, your target, your focus strategy. It's how well your site's SEO'd, it's how well it's converting, etc. So Google My Business, very crucial to be aware of it and to optimize it and to recheck it, because Google will change things. Google likes you to add new photos from time to time in there. It likes you to, revise and update your different locations that you may have, office hours. They want to see photos of your team. I want to see photos of the inside and the outside of your business. And why do they want all this? They want to provide on mobile devices and all computers. But because the vast majority of search is now done on mobile devices, when you search for a business these days, you'll get quite an amazing array of data right there without even clicking through. You can see, okay, they're open now, great. Or I can tap there for directions. Oh, I can see their main services. I can see Google reviews and the like. Google loves presenting that rich search results to their users. So Google My Business is your way to really win this game. The location aspect is important too, because even though Accountant North Sydney in this example is a broad search phrase, you may as well rank well for those, but you don't want to only be targeting location-based search results. So here's a screenshot I just took a little earlier. Accountants Orange being a town in central New South Wales. And you can see there, there's 3 firms listed under the map, right? So the first firm there, can you see under where it says their name, it says no reviews. So from a digital marketing perspective, that's a bit of a fail, right? Whereas the next one down has got 1 review and it was a 5-star. What you want to do is have at least 4 reviews in Google Reviews, and there's just a way of asking your best clients to do that for you. Then under that map, the first listing where it says top 92 accountants and auditors near Orange, that's just a yellow page listing. And the very first one listed, MBC, who are members of Paradox, they're listed basically as the first firm in there. So that's good for them, and that hasn't happened by accident. They use our SEO implementation service. So a couple of ways that blogging really helps your online presence. Firstly, you'd be amazed how quickly you can rank well for long tail phrases. When I interviewed Jarvis Archer, who at the time was with Pearson Hears, Brisbane firm, and I was interviewing him and I said, yeah, it's not uncommon, is it, to rank #1 even in Google for a long tail phrase after you post a blog post, within 2 weeks. He said, oh no, ours is usually like, 10 days. We're #1 in Google. That's been his experience. So the phrases are, what are your target market searching on when they're looking for help in their business, when they're researching and they're looking for guidance, and they won't be searching on the names of your services. They won't be looking for your menu of services. If you haven't seen a YouTube video of mine that's on our YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/practice paradox, when you go to that YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, because we put our webinar recordings, like today's recording will go up there, then you get notified. But yeah, I've got a video called Why a Menu of Services Sucks. Like, it's a really dumb concept from a marketing perspective. So content to share on social. So yeah, it gives you something to say in social media is to share your blog posts. And a good blog post, let's say it's got a structure of 3, 4, 5 different sort of mini topics within the blog post. That's 3, 4, 5 different angles for different wording for a social media post to promote it. So you can come at different angles when you're promoting it, and you can use different images, etc. So it gives you things to share on social. The secondary benefit is, again, that old getting your name out there, which is a very vague objective, but people like to see. If you go quiet, that doesn't help your business, and allows people to get an insight into basically how intelligent you are, really. You've studied long and hard to be good at what you do, and you continue to do CPD hours every month, every year to stay on top of all of that. When they read good educational content that's not dry and technical, save us. It's not going to be about tax deductions, and your aim is not to turn them into a tax expert or accountant or bookkeeper, but it's more to educate them on things they can implement in their business. They're going to think, wow, he knows his stuff, she knows her stuff, and they'll start to follow you in the non-creepy sense of that word these days. And look, over time, they'll come to feel like they know, like, and trust you, which is pretty cool. Being a trusted advisor is not enough. It's one of my little hobby horses that accountants, yes, sure, you're the trusted advisor. So many surveys every year allow the accounting profession to chest beat and say, hey, we are society's trusted advisor. And why wouldn't you be? The banks haven't done themselves any favors. And by extension, the financial planning sector has been tainted by that. So yes, you're trusted. But if being trusted was the only box you needed to tick for your clients to say, hey, I want to do these virtual CFO services, these management reporting, other services, well, then we wouldn't have the value add chasm situation, which is still the case, where even though 9 out of 10 accounting firms say in benchmarking surveys that they want to do more non-compliance value add services with their client, 1 in 10 firms is doing more than 20% of their revenue in that space. So 9 want to, only 1 out of those 9 achieves it. Because you need people to buy need to feel like they trust you, sure, but they've got to feel like they know you, and they've got to feel like they like you. And that's not going to happen with a transactional relationship. It's just not. You don't have a strong relationship with someone you communicate with infrequently. Now, go to this diagram in a lot of depth now, because I did on the flip chart on Friday. So go to our Facebook page. And again, make sure you like it so you get the notifications when we go live. And I ran through this hierarchy of who are you targeting? What are the keywords? Look at the data that's available, but use your intuition and experience as well. Then with search engine optimization, I explain the difference between on-page SEO, which are things that happen on your website, and off-page SEO are things that happen on other websites and assets on the web that can create links and help your ranking. And then you've got to track your rankings week to week to week across a whole range of them. And then you can look at your website traffic. You'll be able to see, okay, is our traffic growing? Are we above 1,000 unique visitors a month? Are we, growing from month to month? And you should be. But that's a gross measure, right? You then can drill down and say, okay, what are our sources of traffic and which pages are people coming in on? You'll end up with blog posts that get hundreds of visitors just to the article itself each month, which then presents a high quality problem / opportunity, which is conversion. The last box on this, which is how do we convert that traffic into people that we can then communicate with ongoing, and use the principle that we call the conveyor belt of influence, which is based on the psychology that people buy after 5 to 7 interactions with a brand. So if that's the psychology, that they're not going to just discover you and buy straight away, particularly in a relationship with a financial advisor, such as an accountant, it's not a snap decision, is it? So knowing they're going to get to know you in little baby steps, the psychology, you use technology, so digital marketing, marketing automation, to communicate with them in a whole series of little steps, which are helpful educational steps, blog posts, videos, events, diagnostics, self-assessments, etc. So that by the time they do inquire. They already know what you do, what you don't do, your values, your principles, and you've got them thinking, and they see you as a leader. So those leads are warm, they're inbound, they're coming to you. You're not prospecting. I hate prospecting. And they're easy to talk to, easy to convert. Now, what I'm going to do now is just share the results of that poll that we did a little earlier. And let's have a look. So running my eye down, Google My Business Listing created, 43% of you. Then 29% of you are blogging consistently. That's good. That's less than a third. Same with social media, is being used consistently by only 29% of you. And let's see, blogging ad hoc, 21%. Never get good at anything doing it ad hoc. And 71% of you have answered little or no online presence. So the fact that you're here in this webinar, if you've answered little or no online presence and you haven't started working with us, I think you should. And in a moment, I'll explain a way that you can do that by coming to our next masterclass. Thanks everyone for participating in that poll. That's some really interesting, and thank you for being honest. Those of you said, look, little or no online presence, 71% of you. So, as one of those sayings earlier, a problem defined is a problem half solved. And the good thing about this style of marketing is it's not mysterious. It's not, you don't need some sort of ponytail and be barefoot in the office to be good at marketing. It's practical. There's a structure to it. And this brings me to the last topic today, is about the fact that you need these 3 essentials in place for effective marketing. You've got to have a structure. You've got to understand how it works. Traffic, conversion, nurturing. There's a structure to it that we teach you in Implementum. And then you've got to be very clear on your strategy. So structure's like the rules of the game. If you're trying to play a sport, you don't know the rules of the game, well, forget about strategy. You've got to understand the structure first, but then you've got to have a good strategy. And strategy is not objectives. It's not, well, you're going to grow by X or Y. Strategy is how you're going to achieve your objectives. And thirdly, you need marketing support within your firm and outside your firm. And here's what happens if you're lacking any one of these 3 things. Without the marketing strategy, you've got no point. Without the structure, you'll have no predictability. It'll all be hit and miss. You'll feel like marketing's a random act, which it's really quite a consistent and measurable thing. And lastly, without marketing support, you won't have consistency. Your blogging will stay, for example, ad hoc. Your monthly newsletter may well not be monthly. So with marketing support, and one of the things that people love about working with Paradox is we become your outsourced marketing team. You have 6 people working for you, but you don't have to hire 6 people. You get a cost-effective slice of our marketing team doing your SEO, your blogging, your social media, your email newsletters. And each month we've got a set number of deliverables that we do. Like, there's no sort of gray areas. We publish those things each month for you, and you've got the metrics and the educational support along the way. Combine all 3 of those and you have effective marketing. Now, in a moment, we'll wrap and I'll get to the last of the questions, but just note these dates down. If you're coming, looking forward to seeing you there. This masterclass is intimate format. We're doing it on a smaller scale, and it is a true workshop. And not to disparage anyone, but there are very few workshops presented to the accounting industry. Things get called workshops that are really just seminars where you sit there and someone comes up and runs through a slide deck, and then there's another slide deck. Unless you're doing something, you're not really learning, and you're certainly not leaving having made any progress in these other industry events. With our masterclasses, they are true workshops. We're actually trained in how to deliver skill development. So that's why you'll actually be given chunks of time and guidance and feedback to do things. And you'll work on what I call the 7 big rocks of strategy. It's a metaphor we use about these are the 7 most important things that you need to clarify first before you start blogging and before you start doing social media, etc. They're details, they're tactics compared to defining your 7 big rocks of strategy. So to check that out, by the way, just go to practiceparadox.com.au/masterclass. And with the early bird pricing that's current, each day, just incrementally, the ticket prices go up. So that's a little bit of an incentive for you there. So yeah, July 26, 27. It's a Thursday and a Friday at Inbox Workspace at Maroochydore. gorgeous part of the world. I love it so much I moved there. Not to Inbox itself, but to the Sunshine Coast. Okay, so let's just quickly wrap, conscious that we need to finish up. Let's see. Dawn asked, just wondering if anyone else is experiencing any issues. That's interesting. Don't know, Dawn. There are a couple of little skips there. And let me just check in the Q&A. I think other than that question, we're done. Now, from today, if you've got any questions about anything that we ran through and you were too shy or distracted to ask, if you're a member of Paradox, email us at hello@practiceparadox.com.au. Also, feel free to use the implementer group. There is a very common trait amongst our successful members. The most successful is they fully engage with us. They come in and they ask questions and they lean on us. So the more you ask, the more we can guide. But thank you everyone, member or non-member, for joining me today for the webinar on how to develop a killer online marketing presence. My sincere wish to you is you've got now an idea that it's scientific, it's logical, it's measurable, there's data involved, but you need to have an understanding of the structure, a clear strategy, which we can help you get on top of at Masterclass, and you need support. But if you're not yet a member, feel free to email us. You can use that same email address if you like, hello@practiceparadox.com.au, or reply to any of the emails that you get from us. And we can have a web meeting and have a chat. So I will see you for our next webinar next month. Bye for now.